Thank you, Juliet. Oh, hang on one second. Well, good morning. Here we go. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This Friday, as you know, this past Friday was Earth Day, and it's celebrated all weekend, and it's something we should and could celebrate every day. So I wanted to give a talk to honor our one and only precious, precious planet, because I feel our planet needs voices to speak for her, advocates who love her and acknowledge how she truly is our life giving mother. We could not live a day without her. And I very much appreciated what you shared, Kim, earlier. Being a passionate voice for the environment and involving our youth too. I want you to share more in the future about how you're involving our youth and connecting with and choosing lifelong service to our environment. Many spiritual traditions see the earth as a living being, including the Native American traditions and the various shamanic traditions. You might have heard about the Gaia hypothesis, which was put forth by the environmentalist James Lovelock. Gaia was the Greek goddess of earth, the mother of all life, the Greek goddess of earth. And the hypothesis states that life on earth self-regulates its environment to create optimum conditions for the additional advancement of life. And when we live far away from the earth, when we don't go and sit in the forest or walk through the woods or swim in the lakes, and breathe the fresh mountain air, we can lose touch with our place in the web of life. And we can forget how Earth is a living being and how we are utterly dependent on her. There's a great quote from Dr. Guy McPherson. He's a professor at the University of Arizona, ecology professor. And he wrote, if you think the economy is more important than the environment, try holding your breath while counting your money. I love that. I think that says it all. And James Lovelock, who's 102 now, he's still here at 102. He said, I speak as a planetary physician whose patient, the living earth, complains of fever. I see the earth's declining health as our most important concern, our very lives depending upon a healthy earth. Our concern for it must come first because the welfare of the burgeoning mass of humanity demands a healthy planet. I myself feel so lucky to live in such beautiful places. I feel like chosen the most beautiful places on the planet. And here in Mount Shasta, there are springs, there are literally springs all around me with the most incredible water, right? Our health depends on pure drinking water, from springs and rivers and lakes and reservoirs, and on eating fruits and vegetables from healthy soil and breathing oxygenated air that's purified naturally by the forest. And then, of course, there's the way nature affects our soul. The joy and the peace we receive from the beauty and the flowers and the herbs and the trees and the forests and mountains and lakes and all the creatures. They're actually right on the other side of this picture, on the other side of this wall, there's a blue jay who is so patiently sitting on her eggs. If this wall wasn't here, I would be about 5 feet from her nest, which I find just so endearing. But Chief Seattle, he reminds us that the earth does not belong to man, man belongs to the earth, and that all things are connected like the blood that unites us all. And man did not weave the web of life, he's merely a strand in it. And whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. I drove home last Monday from a wonderful weekend in Lake Tahoe with you all, Easter Sunday. And as I drove up through Lassen Park, Wow, the area where the Dixie Fire burned through, it's kind of scary looking. It looks like Mordor. It's black and it's barren, and there's a pretty large swath of it there. And I also saw on that drive a whole lot more logging in all the healthy forests. And unfortunately, they took a lot of the big fire-resistant trees, and they left the little ones, the spindly ones, when it's actually the opposite. It's taking the small ones and leaving the big, healthy, fire-resistant trees. That is good forest management. And I thought to myself, wow, man has a lot to learn about taking care of the land. We are dealing with drought, climate change, and fire like we've never seen before. But the answer isn't to cut all the trees before the fire gets them. That thinking is incredibly narrow, and it just will make things worse. Um, there's a line in Mary Oliver's poem that I love. Her poem, "The Trees." She says, "The trees save me daily." Um, and I feel that. I feel like the trees, the forest here, the walks through nature, and there too, it saves me daily. And I walk every day, whether it's raining, whether it's, sunny, snowing, windy, crazy, whatever it is, I walk. And so, it's really important for me, and I think probably for many of you too, that, we have our feet on a dirt trail, right? I have to have my feet on the dirt, on the earth. And I have to take deep breaths every day out in the forest that just help me let go. They help me let go of all the stories in the mind. And they help me let go of any worries, any anxiety and concern. And also just, I need to see and feel the life, all the creatures and the way they live and all the things they teach us. They teach us wonder and awe and being in the present moment. And I know you all know this. You're lovers of nature as well, and you understand this. But I'd like to share Mary Oliver's poem, "When I Am Among the Trees," because she says it so well. I think how we all feel. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me daily. They save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself in which I have goodness and discernment and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and they call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches and they call again. "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. To go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Let's inhale an easy breath and breathe out light. Breathe out the lightness of being that the trees teach us. Some of you know that I've been involved in environmental activism over the years. And at this time last year, this exact time last year, I was engaged in some intense activism here in the Mount Shasta community. I was trying to save a bunch of beautiful, healthy, fire-resistant, older growth trees out at our Lake Siskiyou County Park. And I was trying to save them from a very poorly conceived logging operation. And these trees in our county, they're overseen by our county board of supervisors who were charged with taking care of the public land around the lake. And last year, because of their budget, the county's budget shortfall, they sold off our big healthy trees, a bunch of our big healthy trees, a huge amount, for cutting out at the lake in the name of fire protection. And yet their plan didn't include reducing most of the actual fuels. They left a whole lot of fuels and dead trees and trees laying on the ground. And so their intention obviously was selling trees for timber, not protecting us from fire. And so I kind of became the face of the effort to save those beautiful trees around the lake. And a lot of ministers shy away from political and social issues, but to me, the earth is it's such an essential part of my spirituality. And so for me, spirituality can't be divorced from taking care of the environment or environmental activism. So last spring, I found myself trying in the best way I could to raise consciousness in what I found lacking here locally, and that being our county supervisors don't see those trees as living beings or as important to our peace. They overlook our need for nature and natural beauty, and they are just seeing a commodity, that they can use to get out of the red and into the black in their budget. Um, which really reminds me of that quote from Guy McPherson: see how long you can count money while holding your breath, right? If you cut down all the oxygen producing forests, right? Here's a fun fact. You may not know that a mature leafy green tree produces as much oxygen in a season as 10 people inhale in a year. Isn't that amazing? A big tree keeps 10 people breathing for a year. I love that. It's a great, great fact. So, because I know those trees out at Lake Siskiyou by heart, I mean, I've walked that path for over 30 years out there, almost every day. I ended up becoming a voice for those trees, those trees that do save me daily. Um, in the book, The Hidden Life of Trees, the forester Peter Wohlleben writes, trees are far more alert, social, sophisticated, and even intelligent than we thought. In his book, he describes pointing out two beech trees growing together, and he says, these two are old friends. They are very considerate in sharing the sunlight, and their root systems are closely connected. And in a case like this, when one of those trees dies, the other usually dies soon after because they're dependent on each other. They're kind of like an old couple. But his research shows that trees of the same species are communal, and they'll often form alliances with trees of other species, and that they live in a cooperative, independent relationship, kind of like an insect colony. So trees are families and they're a community. And so last spring, I went out there to those trees along the path that make our park beautiful. And after getting the county supervisor to meet me out there, and at the same time, I got a whole bunch of people to join me, a bunch of concerned citizens to show up when he came out there, and also writing articles for the paper and getting others to do the same, and talking to every single person in this community I could talk to that would listen. After all that, I felt that it still wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because it wasn't going to stop the logging that was planned. And so I followed John Lewis's advice, and I got into a little good trouble. Don't tell anybody, okay? But here's what I did after I tried everything else. Right before dusk, when no one was around, I went out to the park at the lake with my can of black paint, and I painted over the blue rings. The blue rings mean cut this tree, or like Linda was saying, sometimes it's a big blue X, but it's usually a blue ring. And the black rings mean leave it, don't cut it, right? So I went out there and I sprayed, painted a bunch of trees that were right on the trail that were big and healthy that I did not want them to cut. And so about a week later, when I was walking out there, I saw that they had come back and that they had painted over the black with the blue again, right? Well, I went to Ace, I got more black paint, and I went out and I painted over the blue with black. And this went on for about 3 weeks, right? Painting and repainting black rings around those blue rings. But after a lot of paint, finally, when it came time to cut, when the loggers got to that section, they left those trees. They left those trees. They did not cut those trees. Those trees that I painted over with the black, right? And they actually left a bunch of others in the area because the outcry in our community finally reached a tipping point. Or, who knows, maybe they ran out of blue paint. But I share this story because I marvel. I mean, I marvel that myself and then a group of concerned local citizens that we managed to save over 100 trees out there. We saved the biggest, most beautiful, healthy, fire-resistant trees that line our trail at Lake Siskiyou. And it's funny, you know, those black rings are still on those trees, and every day I walk out there, I smile. I feel like those trees thank me, you know? And we need these kind of victories to realize that our voice, our one voice can make a difference. Our one voice. And it feels so good to be able to help our earth right in our own backyard, right? So the theme of Earth Day this year is invest in the planet. That's this year's theme. And they write in their mission statement for this year, act in a bold way, um, innovate in a broad way, and implement in an equitable manner. You know, many of you have children and have grandchildren, and we want them to have a beautiful and healthy home on which to grow and thrive. um, Chief Kwatsinas from the Nuxalt Nation, he's from Canada. He's such an activist and done such great work for the environment. But he writes, we must protect the forest for our children, grandchildren, and children yet to be born. Um, we must protect the forest for those who can't speak for themselves, such as the birds, the animals, the fish, and the trees. Another great true story, which Linda mentioned that she was going to read to our Hawaii peers today, was the story of Julia Butterfly Hill. I think Alison, I think you sent me the book. Yeah, I've been reading it a lot, just perusing it this week. But Julia Butterfly Hill was amazing. I mean, she climbed up into this redwood tree named Luna. It was a giant redwood tree in the middle of a grove of redwoods, and they were doing clear cutting all around it. And she stayed in that tree for 2 years and 8 days. And she she was outraged that people would take a chainsaw to these ancient trees. Some of them are 1,500 years old, even 2,000 years old. And there's only 3% of these groves left on the planet, only 3% of what there used to be. And they're mostly in California, some in Oregon. So Julia's, you know, this one woman, her extraordinary action brought saving trees to the world's attention. You know, what an amazing role model she was. She talked about how she endured a lot in those 2 years living up in that tree in Luna. I think she was living on two 6x6 platforms, 150 feet up in that tree. And she had volunteers. They had to hike 2.5 miles up a mountain to deliver her food. She shares how she went through incredible storms, you can imagine, and she was threatened by loggers. She said she was wet and cold most of the time. Excuse me. But you can feel her state of mind, or really actually state of heart, in this quote. She said, I knew that if I continued to debate politics and science and stayed in the mind instead of the heart and the spirit, it would always be about one side versus the other. We all understand love, however. But how could I convince the loggers to transfer those feelings that they might have for a human being to the forest? You know, and she shares that she received strength and wisdom from the tree. You know, she felt the wisdom of the tree, and that she just deeply loved this tree. And I think she's onto something that's really key for our future, and that is, can we love trees and the forest? Can we love the environment as we can love a person, you know, or like we might love our mother, you know, or our grandmother? You know, and it's exactly that. That's what you feel in the Native American spirituality. There's a deep connection to all of nature. There's a love, there's a bond, there's a feeling of oneness, really. You know, and in that love and that oneness, there's the desire to take care of and nurture. And in the same way that we could never think of our mother as a commodity, We need to help humanity see Mother Nature as something to love and care for, and not as a commodity. And this is what I feel is essential for our future. It's really a change in consciousness. It's a change in view. That's what I feel like will save us. And I feel like the young people are on to that. They are the hope of the future. So I know some of you are quite active in environmental protection, and I thank you so much for that commitment. And if you love nature and you haven't found a way to be active, I invite you to become more active. I was talking with Kim and John about this, but I would love our Unity at the Lake to have an environmental branch, where we go out and plant trees together. Our council and our church, we do donate to environmental nonprofits, but there's more. There's more we can do. And Kim mentioned one of the local nonprofits, the Sugar Pine Foundation. I actually called them this week and I talked to Maria. She's the executive director there. And she encouraged us to come plant trees. She encouraged us to come plant little seedlings. And they have a planting coming up on April 30th. They're meeting at 893 Mule Deer Circle at 10 a.m. And she said, actually, they plan to plant 15,000 trees this year in the Caldor and the Tamarack Fire Burn Scar. I hope to join them in a planting when I'm down there. She says they're going to have quite a few. So I'm planning on going and doing that. But when I asked Maria to share some words, because I was giving this talk on Earth Day of how we can make a difference and nurture nature, her very first immediate answer was consume less, consume less. And I just thought, yeah, that is so key. But then she added, use less plastic, ride a bike or use public transport or drive a hybrid or electric car, create drought resistant landscaping, and harvest seeds in September. That's when we harvest the seeds. They're having a seed gathering walk in September there, but we can do that on our own. We can create a little space in our house where we take those seedlings and we grow them, right? And we can plant them in nearby burn scars. So one last thing that I would add is to consider how our diet affects our planet. I myself, my best girlfriend back when I was 18 was vegetarian. She was from California. I was living in Florida. And so she inspired me to become vegetarian, and I've been a vegetarian ever since. But I was really inspired when I read that the founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, were vegetarians. And that was not really a thing in the 1890s. That was not a thing. But let me share a recent quote that's from the journal Science. It reads, avoiding meat and dairy products is the single biggest way to reduce your environmental impact on the planet. Wow. And it goes on to say beef is often cited as the worst environmental offender. Giving up beef once a week in favor of beans over the course of a year is the equivalent of not burning 38 gallons of gas. So even if you're not prepared to go vegetarian or vegan, just eating fewer animal products, especially red meat, that's a win. Even a little less makes a difference. So in closing, really let's make every day Earth Day. Every day, of course, is a day to love our beautiful and amazing planet that sustains us every moment. Albert Einstein said, our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. So may we live each day in a way that celebrates and honors and blesses and nurtures our beloved Mother Earth. So be it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.